Hi, my name is CTrietsch, and today is all about ukulele humidifiers. I'm going to show you a couple of different options and how to DIY one too. So, starting with these two guys, I use this D'Addario for my tenor and baritone size ukulele, and this is a Music Nomad. It's a little smaller, fits in my soprano and concert size ukulele. Music Nomad also makes a larger size I use on my guitars, but these are the ukulele size ones. These work really nicely because they fit inside the sound hole of the ukulele and they rest on the strings. That's important because when it's dry, the soundboard or back are usually where you have cracking or issues because of dryness. So we just place the humidifier in like this. It holds on to the strings. If it was sitting on a music stand, you'd see it would be fine. If it's inside the case, usually the lid kind of touches the top and it keeps it from rattling around or bouncing into the sound hole edges and causing damage. So it sits nicely just like that. The newer instruments I've been building, I don't have a sound hole under the strings for many reasons that I think benefits the tone and sound of the ukulele, but it presents a problem for humidifying them with these humidifiers because check this out. That's not going to work, especially not in a case. And I'd be worried about the hard plastic damaging the finish or the sides of the ukulele. So I tried getting these violin humidifiers, which fit inside here too, but I found that the sponges inside these are so small that they don't hold the water very well, so they don't stay wet very long, and then they drip as well. So I had a watermark on the bottom of the ukulele, which is no bueno. So I got rid of those. Let me show you how to DIY one instead. So in order to DIY anything, you have to know how it's made, right? So checking out this D'Addario brand one, all it is a casing. There's a lid and a case, right? And inside that is a sponge, and the sponge is the critical thing here. The sponge is going to be wet. I'll show you. We just wet it just like that. Squeeze out all the extra water so that it's completely dry. Usually I end up wiping my hand off. See, no water's dripping out of there. It's going to go back in here, and we cover it up. What's nice about this is that it's closed at the bottom. It's got holes in the front. That way, if water builds up at the bottom, it won't drip onto the label or the other side of the instrument. It'll probably get sucked back up in the sponge and released appropriately. So that's a very simple design. It's only got two components. We can make one. We're going to use a plastic bag for our casing and then a sponge for our sponge. Okay, and I also like to apply a string. This is a shoelace, nice soft shoelace. That way I can retrieve it out of the ukulele when I need to refill it. So let's talk about some sponges. I got these tiny little wafers. These are, let me look, I think I got a 100 pack on Amazon for $9, $9.99. There's these Scotch-Brite sponges, which come in a 6-pack for about $6 or $7. These are Trader Joe's sponges. These ones expand as you wet them. And I think this was a 12-pack for $13 maybe. So for very cheap, you can make your own humidifiers. The only two tools that you need are a scissor and a hole punch. You could use a three-hole hole punch as well, but this one just is easier to use. So let me show you this. This little wafer is super thin, but look, once you wet it, looks the same as this. It's even the same thickness. So you can cut this and use this as replacements for your D'Addario ones. They're so cheap. Instead of buying a $7 thing, I have 100 of these I got for $9, so I'm good for the rest of, I can keep replacing these sponges if they get wrecked or whatever. Well, maybe it would fit in the bag. What you have to look at is, will your sponge fit into the sound hole of the ukulele when it's dry? So this is a little tight, so if I use a sponge, I would just cut it like this. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There you go. 2 pieces of sponge, I'm going to put inside the bag. Now, in order to make the bag release a little more moisture, we just punch a couple holes in it. So that's where your hole punch comes in. I'm going to, let's say, punch 3 holes in it. And if you have more holes, of course, it will release more moisture. Fewer holes will release less moisture. I'm going to punch 3, let's see, 4, let's do 6 maybe. This is a pretty large bag. This is a nice size bag for an ukulele humidifier. One in the middle there. Okay, now I want to put the string on here too, so I'm going to put 2 holes right here. Boop, boop. Nice. The string just gets fed through, like so. Oopsies. Boop, boop. This is pretty long. I don't want these plastic aglets at the end because they may scratch, and I don't need this much length. So I'm going to cut this shorter. How about that? We can go a little shorter. Whoop. There we go. All right, we'll put that aside. Clean that up a little bit. Good. All right, there is my case. What do you think? Looks about the same. Okay. Now, let's show you one of these Trader Joe's sponges. These ones are really cool. So these are big. I'm going to cut this into about a third. Right there. Let's see if I can cut this. These are a little tough. Hydrating these sponges looks like magic. So you ready? See how thin that is? All right, we're going to let that get a little wetter. While that's hydrating, let's talk about the water. It says actually on this lid here, it says use distilled water. And distilled water will just keep the sponges and help them last longer. But these sponges last or are so cheap and replaceable that I don't really mind. I've had these sponges since 2017 or so, I think. And they're still fine. So I just use regular water. And then I can always replace the sponge if I need to. Check out how big that sponge got, by the way. If your sponge starts getting a little moldy, then definitely get rid of it. So one tip regarding that too, use cold water or room temperature water. If you use warm water, it will get moldy within just a couple weeks and you have to replace it. So anyway, here's my sponge. Goes inside the casing. Just like so. I'm going to zip it closed. Some people leave it open for another point of airflow. Okay, so there's little holes here for the air to flow and moisture to go out into the ukulele. I have this to catch it. And we don't necessarily want this to be sitting up against the top or back because it is a wet sponge and, you know, water can drip right into it. Okay, I didn't put holes in the bottom. That way, hopefully, if there was excess water, even though I squeezed it all out, if there was excess, hopefully it would pool at the bottom and then reabsorb into the sponge. Anyway, I just stick that in like that. How I generally store my ukulele is in the cases, standing up this way. So I'm going to put enough string that's kind of floating in the middle. Hold that there, put it in the case, tuck the string in. You can tuck it down, up, whatever you like. Once I close the case, I just got this case recently. I think it's a really cool one. But anyway, once this is standing up, you know, in line with the other cases, hopefully the sponge will be kind of floating somewhere in the middle of the body and not touching the front or back or the other side. And that's it. You're going to check that sponge in about a week and see if it's dry. Once they get hard and dry, you're going to pull it out and you're going to wet it. So you kind of find out maybe 7 to 9 days, maybe 10 days, 12 days, depending on what sponge you use. You keep humidifying them throughout the winter. Okay, whenever the heat's coming on and it's dry, the relative humidity inside is dry. What humidity are you looking for? About 40 to 55% for the ukulele. If you look, this is the workshop right here. This says it's 39%. In the workshop, I turned the humidifier off just for this video, so it wouldn't be making noise. Usually it's about 45% in here, so we're like at a pretty good level. With the heat coming on, humidity inside drops to about 20 to 30%, which is a little on the dry side. So we put a humidifier right in the case to help the ukulele. And if you have a room humidifier, that's bonus, right? Especially if you have a bunch of instruments out on the stands. But this DIY way, I have about 12 to 15 instruments I got to humidify. So I got plenty of sponges for only a couple bucks, and I don't need to pay, you know, $8 to $15 each per humidifier this way. Plastic bags are cheap. But of course, I do have a bunch of these, and I put these in as many ukulele as I can because they're just so nice and convenient, and they fit well and sit on the string, so I don't have to worry about fiddling with it. All right, so there you go. Now you can make your own humidifier if you have an ukulele that doesn't have a sound hole below the strings. Thank you for watching.